And welcome into the Craig Kennedy Show here on the SHC Athletics YouTube channel. Charlie Harrison along Craig Kennedy. And not to diminish any of the players we've had on, because we've had some great guests, but this is by far my favorite.
This is Gus the Wonder Dog.
And he is such a happy boy.
He's all right. He's an old campaigner. He's 11 now, but you'd never know.
Oh, he's such a sweetie. And now he's trying to give you some love and say,
Yep,
don't tell
yep,
people
yep.
I'm old. They don't
Yeah.
need to know that.
Yeah.
So, Coach, how
Yeah.
did you get Gus?
How do we got him at the Getting place? I'd had a friend who had a, I'd always liked blue heelers. Actually, our blacksmith growing up had a blue heeler, and he was a really good dog, and I liked him. And I eventually got Gus. This lady had him for sale. He's part blue heeler, part corgi.
Okay.
They're bred that way. I guess he's had enough. They were bred that way. They're not so bitey with horses.
Okay.
Whereas a regular blue heeler, they're going to heel cattle. They're going to bite
Right.
their heels. The corgi mix is not supposed to be so bitey with horses.
Makes them a little bit easier. And, you and I have discussed this before. We were both farm and horse guys
Yes.
growing up. So you got yourself a little farm dog. Not too
Yeah,
bad.
that's not too bad. He's pretty good. He's kind of a world traveler. We've gone on some long trips together. 6,000 miles or so we put on one trip. So yeah, we've had a good. He comes to practice sometimes and stuff, and keeps me loose, keeps the boys loose. The best was one day we're watching film and Webb was lying down on the floor because that's the best angle for him to see the film where his locker is. And Gus came over and started licking his forehead while Webb was giggling away like a little kid. It was the funniest thing. Gus, you want to sit back up here for the people? Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
So is Webb Gus's favorite player, or does he have a favorite?
I don't think he has a favorite. Oh, he's had enough. He's ready for a nap again. I don't know that he has a favorite, but
Okay.
He generally visits with all of them.
There you go. Well, Coach, moving on to basketball. Had Central State on Saturday, Kentucky State on Monday, dropped the contest at Central State 78-74, and then Kentucky State, a little bit of a surprise, a team you put up 100 on last time you saw them. They come back around. We knew they could score, and
Yes.
they win 105-95.
Yeah.
What are your takeaways from the weekend?
Well, the Central State game. I don't know if everybody can see this shirt. Can we get a good look at the shirt here? This is a game. Is no secret. This is based on a 1944 game with a school that's now North Carolina Central that played Duke, and this was back in the Jim Crow laws. And a white school was not allowed to play a black school.
Right.
And so this game was played in secret. So we wore these shirts with Central State, to stamp out racism. And racism exists in many forms. Most people just think it is a black-white thing. That's the most common thought, but it isn't. And any kind of prejudice, Spring Hill College, the reason Spring Hill College is in the SIAC, if you go back to Martin Luther King Jr.'s letters from Birmingham jail, he references Spring Hill College, the students and the staff and the support that he received. So this is one thing we are so much in support of equality and against racism and discrimination of any sort. So we were proud to be able to join with Central State and support this cause.
And basketball is one of the great games for that too.
Absolutely.
It's such a melting pot. You have all kinds of different cultures coming
Absolutely.
together.
Yeah.
So that's really cool to see, Coach. Outside of that, some takeaways from the weekend.
Yeah, usually, we played pretty good first half. Second half, fouls were 7-1 in the Central State game, and that was a real challenge for us.
Yeah.
And we had to really, really battle in that game. Typically, we would like to do something educational with the guys on the road, but the weather really prohibited that. We were going to go to the Charles Young Buffalo Soldier Museum, which is in Wilberforce, Ohio, right outside Central State. And unfortunately, we weren't able to do that just because of the weather.
Now, was it just a really snowy weekend, or just abnormally
it
cold?
was snow and sleet and this big slippery stuff, and we just felt with the driver and the coach, it was better just to be safe with the kids and try to be adventurous.
You don't often appreciate how hard it is for those bus drivers too when you get out on the road and everything is that slick and that wet, especially when you're somebody who's from down here having to drive and all of that.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a very very different environment. especially those big buses.
Yeah, definitely. And of course, you have that Kentucky State game as well.
Yeah.
It's always hard to beat a team twice.
Yeah, especially there. It was senior night, so that's obviously a big deal for them. The first half, we played really, really well. Second half, I don't know how it happened, but again, it came out and the fouls were 8-1 against us. But give both teams credit, they played well. Kentucky State had a couple guys who really stepped up and shot the ball well in the second half, but it was a challenge for our guys being able to play a similar style that Kentucky State was playing without fouling.
Yeah, I can imagine that.
Let's put it that way.
Now, Coach, we do have a couple of highlights from the game.
We do, because I say the first half was we played some beautiful ball, and you'll watch the reaction of some of the Kentucky State fans down here as we were playing. Oh, well, here we got Gus. Gus going up for the tip-off with the Badger there. And I know Gus is playing a little bit of defense. He'll get down in his stance. Here we go. Steven leading the break. Sees Bo on the wing. Big Tim posting up hard inside. Good skip pass to Eli. Little flip. There's Walter dropping one down. Eli now playing the point. Kentucky State tried to take Bo out of the offense, and we just used multiple guys. Good screen. Walter pulling. Boom. You watch these guys down here. They're just like, what is this deal? Here we go. Great back door. Walter getting up and putting one down. Walter really diversified his game. Here's Steven going to the basket. I think he gets a grab there, but scores. Starting to get some good ball movement, little stagger action. Post up inside. Eli should have seen Steven sooner, I think, on this. Steven, nice touch. Here we're running Bows with it now. Again, Big Tim getting down there. Trying to take Walter away. Backdoor. Watch this. Unbelievable pass by Bo. Watch these guys down here. Oh, we'll see it again. It was so good. Let's see it twice. Big Tim going up with the flush. Great pass by Bo. Not a great pass that time. Eli has to handle it. Kicks it out. Bo looks. There's Walter on a post up inside. Again, Walter's done a good job the second half of the year to score in a variety of ways. Bo with the strip there. Little lob. There's Tim with a flush.
And I want to go back to a couple of plays ago. You talk about guys playing without the ball in their hand. Eli is a great example of that every play. He starts that one off handling the rougher pass on the far side, and then he's worked back around and open for that feed.
Yeah. Bo hitting another one deep there. Looking, Steven, lots of space. Steven says, heck, if you can do it, I can do it too. Look at the fans. This is the Kentucky State fans. They didn't know what to do. Here's Bo handling, sees Tim running. When Tim gets running like that, we're pretty good.
He is a lot quicker than you would think he'd be for a guy of his size, too.
Yeah.
Now, Coach, you talk about Bo getting taken out of that game a little bit. It was a focus for that Kentucky State defense. I imagine it doesn't feel too bad for somebody to really harp in on Bo and try and take him away when Eli also has 81 assists on the season.
Right. And it was a good strategy on their part. And I think when I first came here, what happened is they played with a single point guard, and they would press that person or take him away. And we tried to just diversify our players. So we really have two positions on the floor. You're a big or you're a Badger.
Right.
And so all our players really do almost all the same drills. But all our Badgers can take the ball and run the offense and stuff. In fact, later on in the game, Tim's dribbling the ball up the floor.
Yeah.
And when we see Big Webb, sometimes will take the ball and go if no one's guarding him. So,
and that's such an interesting offensive look to me. I think I've seen that more this season than I have as a whole in college basketball than I have in years past, where guys are, especially bigs, are starting to have to make their game more about the perimeter.
Yes.
And it is certainly forcing 4s and 5s to become better ball handlers.
Yeah. We drew a drill called cone drill. I know our guys sometimes don't like it, but they've got to dribble through a cone. We go 4 minutes. We've got to score 160 points as a team.
Whew.
And they got to go and handle. But it makes them so much better.
Now, I want to ask, too, Walter Pegg's a big game last time out against Kentucky State. 38 points, 22 from Lyles, 15 from Riley. We talked a lot about if we're going to go where Tim's going to go. And typically when we see Walter post those kind of numbers and you get that 20-plus from Steven, it turns into a win.
Yes.
What wasn't clicking defensively?
Well, again, it seemed like every time we tried to do something, there was this tweeting sound I kept hearing. And again, the fouls were 8-1 at one point. So
Yeah.
it was very, very tough for us. How are we supposed to play this game and defend that is going to be acceptable to the officials?
Now, as we get into conference time, how are you kind of talking to the guys about that? Of course, hand awareness is going to be a huge thing.
Yeah.
Body awareness is going to be a huge thing.
Yeah. So, one of the things we really talk to our guys about is, listen, you got to learn to refocus. If calls aren't going the way we think they should, we've got to be mentally tough and stay focused on how we are going to play the game.
Now, I know we were looking at potentially as we ended the home stretch of hosting a game here for the conference tournament. From what I understand, that's now off the table standings wise.
Yeah, we're in 5th place right now. I don't know, with these next 2 games. I told the guys, listen, when you go on the road, the first thing you want to do is split.
Right.
Well, we dropped these 2, but we can still split by winning the next 2.
Right.
So you've got to have that mindset going in, playing Tuskegee, who just dropped a game to Lane, and then going up to Lemoyne-Owen.
Now, how is the health of everybody? I know that's been a big concern with not so much injuries, but illness just going around. The flu's been hitting everybody.
Yeah, Bo was the last one who seemed to have been struggling a little bit. He had some issues on the road with the flu. I think I'm back to probably about 95% right now.
Okay.
And so I think health-wise we're pretty good. We got back yesterday, and people don't realize what student athletes go through. We left at 10:30 Eastern time right after the game, drove through the night. We got back at 8 a.m. yesterday morning.
Not to mention, on top of all of this, you left at 4 a.m. You had that long ride up to Ohio.
2:30 a.m. is when we left.
2:30 a.m. And then you had to change the schedule around while you were up in Ohio.
Yeah. So, and we get back, we clean the bus, get our stuff going, get laundry going, and then it's okay. Who's got 9 o'clock class? I do. Okay, got to go to class.
Yeah.
So they got to go to class all day. Then we did a recovery session last night with the guys. Today's our off day. So we'll be off today. We'll do some shooting tomorrow, get into practice mode on Friday, do some shooting before we go up Saturday to play Tuskegee. So as student athletes, they go through a lot.
Yeah. Well, with that, we've got more games coming up this weekend, final 2 of the regular season. We'll talk about that on the other side. You're watching the Craig Kennedy Show here on the SHC Athletics YouTube channel.
Nope. Thanks for coming up, Gus, coming up for air with us, huh, buddy?
This is the way down a path that leads to a place upon the hill, led by thought leaders, activists, and Jesuit princes. Among the hill is where tradition and a strong desire to do and achieve reside. Ingrained in rich tradition, filled with purpose, fueled by passion. Spring Hill College is for those who seek more.
Welcome back to the Craig Kennedy Show here on the SHC Athletics YouTube channel. Coach Craig Kennedy and Gus the Wonder Dog, Charlie Harrison alongside you. Coach, we talked about last weekend in the last segment. Time to look ahead. You got a rematch with Tuskegee on the way. Lost to them 104-99 in overtime here at home. Yeah. How do you go back up there and get the win this time out?
Well, I talked to a buddy of mine who works for the Dallas Mavericks, and I was talking about our woes defensively this year, and it's our guys are working hard. It's not that they aren't working hard and stuff, and we're everybody's target.
Right.
We're everybody's rivalry game, and guys hit hoops. I mean, the kid from Kentucky State, he hit some shots. He had to be 6 feet or more behind the 3-point line.
Yeah.
He just drilled a couple. And so, one of the things I talked with my buddy, with the Mavericks is, listen, you got to be just average defensively.
Yeah. Because
right now you're below average. If we can just be average, we'll be okay. And that's what's talking to our guys about. There's just certain aspects, particularly our blocking out on the offensive rebounds. People know crash the boards on Spring Hill.
Yeah.
And we've just got to be better blocking out. And so that's going to be a real focus with our guys.
Now, we talk about that. And, of course, post play has been big for you guys this season with Riley and Webb.
Yeah.
How much of that is going to be the onus is on them to block guys out, take away those offensive shots, and how much of it is on the guards to also make sure they're getting down there?
Yeah, it's a great comment, Charlie. Walter and Steven in particular have to be blocking out. Eli's got to be blocking out. Eli often blocks out, but he's not the quickest person in the room.
Right.
So he's got to really move his feet as well and maintain the block out. And Eli plays so hard. He had 7 assists and 7 rebounds against Kentucky State.
Right.
Played really, really hard. But we have to create a phalanx on defense and hold people off and secure the rebound and get going. Rocco had a good rebounding game for us as well up at Kentucky State.
Rocco's been doing such a great job of coming into his own as a player overall, shooter, rebounder, all of it.
Really has, and can come in and play the 1, 2, or 3. He could even play the 4 a little bit. I think he's got a great future here with us.
Now, similar thing, you've got Lemoyne Owen to round out the regular season up in Memphis. Another team just couldn't quite get it done in overtime.
Yeah.
Talk about those overtime games. It's a lot of minutes on the legs, it's
Sure.
extra minutes. But how, after you have those overtime games not go your way, do you get the guys mentally ready to play that team again?
Well, one of the things we talk about, we've got to make better decisions when we get into overtime.
Mm-hmm.
We got to get moving the ball more. And guys, and this you talked about and mentioned it earlier, you have to move without the basketball.
Right.
And we tell our guys, if you see their back, go attack. So if you're down in a corner, in a wedge formation, and you see somebody's defender's back, go and back screen that guy.
Yeah.
Make people have to play you, be hard to guard. And so that's one of our real emphasis now is moving without the ball and being hard to guard. And we've got to do that in our overtime. We got to move without the basketball.
The last overtime game, what stood out to me, you got a lot of minutes out of Sprout and you got a lot of minutes out of Rocco in overtime. What's kind of the purpose of that change? Because those are two guys, they're not normally in the starting lineup.
Right.
They're younger players. Is it just a freshness of legs thing, or is it just
It's
their
a
IQ?
freshman of legs. Both of them, Rocco's got a pretty high IQ, and there's a naivety about them because they haven't been there, so they don't overthink the game as much.
Right. And that's easy, especially for an older player to do. I mean, you talk about this starting lineup. Steven's a senior. Bo's a senior. Tim's a senior.
Eli's a senior. Luca, Walter,
All the starters pretty
Yeah.
much at that point.
absolutely. So sometimes being young's a real benefit.
Now, you've got the conference tournament coming up right after that. It's going to kick off on March 1st through the 8th. We talked about it. It's going to be a road situation for you guys. You're ending with 4 games on the road. I'm assuming with a run, it would be about 4 games to make the conference championship game.
And this is a real really good point because Steven brought this up. He said, guys, this 4 road games, we have to look at this as prep for winning the conference championship. We started the year going on the road with going down to Florida, play 2 games back-to-back, day off, play another game. We've done that last couple of years in preparation for the conference tournament.
Mm-hmm.
And so Steven did a great job getting everybody to refocus. Hey, let's look at these 4 games at the end of the road as a blessing and our prep for conference championship.
Now, with those 4 games on the road, especially with such a long trip to kick off, is there any concern about wear and tear on the legs?
No, I think the one thing, talking with Eli, he says his legs feel really good.
Okay.
And so I think we've given more breaks this year. More days where we take 2 days off. Like last night we did yoga and the guys shot free throws as a recovery day. And the guys are really good about taking care of their own bodies and doing the right thing. So I think health-wise, and because we've played Sprout, because we've played Rocco, because Webb's had minutes, I think, Walter's obviously logged a lot of minutes.
Yeah.
But,
When you're averaging 28 points a game, you kind of have to.
you kind of have to, But I think the guys feel really good about where we are physically.
And that's good. And you mentioned guys doing a lot of this conditioning on their own, making sure they're taking care of conditioning on their own.
Yeah.
How much, when you're talking to them about what they're doing, is an emphasis put on conditioning overall, making sure you're still getting running in at a part in the year when nobody wants to do extra running?
The big thing is the non-starters have to do more on their own.
Right.
Because it doesn't matter what you do in practice, it's not going to replicate the intensity of games.
Right.
So they've got to be doing that on their own and getting the work in. And then you've got to give a big shout out to our training staff, Laura Beth, Ant, and Ty. They just do a great job taking care of our guys. Ant on the road with us, taking care of us while we're on the road and stuff. So they do a really good job getting everybody back to go for game time.
I think it's really interesting, too. You mentioned the guys who are non-starters have to put in that extra work.
Yeah.
but it's kind of hard to put in extra work over the starters, considering the way Bo and Steven in
Well,
particular will go out there. And,
absolutely. And, we learned this when I was at the University of Winnipeg and we'd won our 3 national championships. The non-starters, right after the game, went into the weight room, got onto the exercise bikes and started doing some conditioning because they knew they weren't getting the reps the same way that the starters were. And we've preached that to our guys here as well.
and I think it pretty much after every game this season, I've seen Webb come in and pull out the shoot around machine and
Yeah.
go to the free throw line and really put that work in.
Yeah.
Now, Coach, talking about conference tournament right around the corner, it's going to be up in Atlanta. What's going to be the number one thing for your guys in that situation, and what's the difference between the back half of this regular season and conference tournament time?
Sure. There's 4 things we talk about every day. Number 1, we got to block out. Number 2, we have to exceed their effort. We have to exceed their communication, and we have to exceed their execution.
Mhm.
And those 4 things won't change. If we do those things, if we handle the ball, run our sets properly, set good screens, take good shots, I'm really, really looking forward to the conference tournament. We've
Now-
said from day one our goal is to win the conference tournament. I told the guys, regular season record, yes, we want to have a good record, but it doesn't come conference time. Nobody wants to play us because everybody knows the way we can score, and it doesn't matter. Even at Central State, we scored only like 74 points, something like that. That's still more than most people are scoring.
Right.
So, people know the way we can score, and it's like everybody goes, shoot, if things go well with them defensively, that's a dangerous team.
Now, one of the things that has really stood out to me is it's lulls in the game, right? You're playing really well here, 15, 20 minutes, and then all of a sudden it's, okay, now we're going to go on a 4 or 5 minutes silent streak.
Yep.
How do you overcome that, and how do you get those streaks popped a little bit quicker in a situation where it's one and done if you lose?
Yeah, no, that's a great comment, Charlie, and it's talking to our guys about refocusing. I try not to use timeouts.
Mm-hmm.
When a team's on a run, I'd rather sub to try to break up their run because when you call a timeout, that's a motivational boost for the other team.
Right.
And our guys, as veteran teams, they've got to recognize, and we have to encourage them to recognize, hey, when you got to get down on defense and get in a stance, and we got to get a stop here.
And that's a really interesting point. You talk about not wanting to use that timeout. You don't want to give that other team that mental victory. But when you're pulling guys in and out in that situation, what's kind of the thought process? Say if you have a hot shooter, but they're slacking a little bit off on defense.
Yeah. Well, there's going to be no slacking off on defense from here on out. I mean, we just can't, you just can't this time of year. And, we talk to our guys about there's teams that literally across the nation, Division 1, 2, 3, they want the season to end. We want our season to extend.
Right.
And we've got to be willing to do what it takes to extend the season.
How much of that is coming from the seniors, too, talking about wanting to extend the season? Of course, this is a really good senior group. They've picked up a lot of accolades, but they're still missing that ring.
Absolutely. And, the hardest thing in sports is winning the last game of the year. I mean, it's really, really tough. And you look at a guy like Charles Barkley who never got to do that.
Right.
Which
Shaq never fails to remind him.
Right. As good a player as Barkley is, it's a tough thing to do. And so our seniors are aware. They know what they have to do. And they're going to step up and get it done.
Now, of course, it seems to me team to beat's probably going to be Miles. I mean, they're playing really good basketball.
Yes.
They're very physical. And the method this season has seemed to be slow down Spring Hill's scoring, make them play a more physical game than they want to.
Yeah.
How do you get your guys in these one and done situations to respond to physicality?
Well, we have to. It's so much of it is mental, and we have to be mentally tough, knowing we're going to get fouled, and knowing we're going to go to the free throw line and make free throws. And this is why we've put a real emphasis. Shooting free throws this last little while is we can't. I don't know what we were from the line the other day, offhand, Charlie, but I know Walter got to the free throw line. Steven,
19 of 22, which is hard to complain about.
That's pretty good, and we just got to get to the free throw line. I thought we should have got to the free throw line more. There was that clip there where Steven went in. I thought that should have been an and one situation, but our guys just got to get tough with the ball, and it's a mental game from here on out.
Steal numbers have been up the past couple of games. You guys have been playing a really handsy brand of defense.
Yep.
Would you rather have a steal or a block?
Boy, that's a great question. You know, we talk about three deflections equaling a steal. I would like to see Tim blocking more. I think Tim should be getting 4 blocks a game. You know,
And that's hard. Like we've talked about before, you know,
Yeah.
you're going to get some blocks that you're just not going to get credit for.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Webb's starting to get some. I was really happy with Webb. I mean, he had a situation in the game at Kentucky State, and he just walled up on the guy and put the guy on his backside. And we've got to do that, you know, without hurting people. We got to defend the hoop better.
Now, how big is 3-point shooting going to be for you guys down this stretch?
Well, if we're making them, it's going to be good.
There you go.
You know, it's like, again, Walter and, you know, Steven came down. He had hit 2 threes in a row, came down and pulled another one. And he looked at me and he goes, "Oh, my bad, coach. You missed it." But I said, "Shoot, you just made the 2 before."
Right.
So I have no problem with you taking that shot. And the same with Walter. Walter takes some shots, and you sit there and go, "Oh, my gosh." The fans in the stands are going, "Oh, my God." Gus, were you going, "Oh, my God"? Yeah, Gus goes, "Gus, would you sit up with us for a minute? Come up, sit up here, son." All right. You know, look into the microphone. Look into the camera over there. I'll talk to the mic. You stop it. You know,
He says,
we-
"I'm shy."
good boy. We got to make shots, whether it's free throws, threes, open jumpers. It's about making shots at this level and about making your opponent take shots they don't want to take.
Now, how big is, with those threes, offensive rebounding going to be for you guys?
Absolutely crucial. Steven's got to be an offensive rebounder. Tim, Webb have to be offensive rebounders. Rocco's, Luca, Colin. These guys have to be offensive rebounders.
You know, Coach, I really appreciate one of the things about this team is we've talked about how you respond to physicality, how you go down and get the ball. We never have to talk about consistency because these guys are playing hard every night.
They are. Listen, we know the truth. We aren't as athletic as our opponents. So we have to play hard. We have to be consistent. And you just got to get some breaks along the way.
All right, so Coach, the 2 coming up this weekend, Tuskegee 3 p.m. this Saturday, Lemoyne Owens 7:30 on the road in Memphis on Wednesday. What's your message to Badger fans who are out on the road?
Hey, Badger fan, first off, be safe when you're on the road. That's number one. Watch us play. If you can't get to the gym, if you can't get to Tuskegee, if you can't get to Lemoyne Owen, watch us online. It's going to be a great game.
SIAC Network, every
SIAC
game.
Network. And, you know, a really interesting thing, you know, Walter's a man of great faith. And he has his Bible with him every game. And he reads his Bible beforehand. Webb, you'll see Webb over on the side praying beforehand. But after the Kentucky State game, we were walking out, and Walter had his Bible with him. And there were so many people on the side saying, "Hey, 35, great game, 35, great game." And he walked past, and I heard these 2 girls goes, "Oh, look, he's got a Bible." We talk about more is caught than what is taught.
Right.
And this is a great example. Walter's a man who lives by his faith, and people see that, and that's just so important. You know, here we are at a faith-based school, and these are great guys. They're really fine young men, and wins and losses to me is really important because we love to compete.
Right.
But the opportunity, I'm so thankful for the opportunity to here work with such good guys, and just appreciate that so much.
Coach, I can't think of a better note to end the show on. Thanks so much for your time. Enjoy the road trip. We'll talk to you next week, see how it went, and prime everybody for the conference tournament.
We'll purple up and say, hell yeah.
Hell yeah, that'll do it for us here on the Craig Kennedy Show this week. New episodes every Wednesday through the end of the Badgers season. Thanks so much for hanging with us here on the SHC Athletics YouTube channel.